Hi, this is Nick from the Run Testers. I'm here with
Kieran.
And today we're going to be comparing the Saucony Endorphin Speed 2
and the Saucony Endorphin Pro 2. So as you can see, if we hold these up, it's fair to say there's quite a lot of similarities here in the overall design of these shoes. Nick, what is different, I guess? What's the same, what's different?
Start off what's the same, because that's really all the key stuff. The uppers are very similar mesh stuff. The midsoles where the magic happens on this line, they've both got Saucony's Power Run PB foam, which is a PBA-based foam. You know, the stuff that's in all the kind of best shoes these days. Kind of Nike brought it in with Zoom X foam. They both have a plate, but there is a difference there. That's a carbon plate in the Pro, the Racer. And then the Speed, which is billed more as a kind of fast trainer, has a nylon plate. Other than that, it's really very similar kind of feel to the midsole, because it's also got Saucony speed roll technology. Either is kind of rolls you through your kind of foot strike, gets you moving very smoothly, as opposed to a really sink in and spring feeling that you would get on some of the other kind of plate shoes.
And really similar geometry. I think if these actually had the same colours on them, you might not be able to tell them that much apart if you look at them from a distance. The other thing, if you flip them under,
outsole's exactly the same.
Exactly the same. And then I guess another difference here is on the top. In the uppers, these have got a slightly different kind of lacing construction that's come in with the two, which are these additions of these little tabs where you can run your laces through just to get a little bit of extra lockdown fit. Yeah,
exactly. Yeah. And then the Endorphin Speed has always had a bit of padding around the kind of heel, and it's got a heel counter. The Pro has got a bit more padding. It still hasn't got a proper like heel counter. It's very stiff on this one, but there is a bit more there to secure. I think some people have problems with heel slippage with the first edition of the shoe, so they've beefed that up very slightly.
The tongues, I guess, is another difference. This has got a slightly thinner tongue.
Yeah, and this is slightly, again, more padded, just kind of speaking to the fact this is more billed as a training shoe than the pure Racer. And similar to that is you are getting a very slight difference in weight. So for my UK size 9, the Pro is 231 grams, which is 8.1 ounces. And then the Speed is 235 grams, or 8.3 ounces. So it's very minimal, but yeah, it's a slightly lighter shoe, which you'd expect for the Racer shoe with a little bit less padding. We should also say we are talking about the Pro and Speed 2 here. We've done a lot of miles in the Pro and Speed 1, and these are basically the same shoes. There's a little, like I say, there's a bit more heel stuff here. They've made this reflective on the new one, and they've slightly updated the upper, but I don't think there's any tangible changes that would make me buy the new versions over the old versions. So if you're looking and you find those cheaper, all the stuff we're about to say in the run test applies to both generations of the shoe.
Yep.
One key difference is the price of the shoes. This is £155 in the UK, and that is £190. I think that's $160 and $200. So it's a fairly big jump in price for what I don't think is necessarily a corresponding jump in performance. Onto the run test. I'm a big fan of these shoes. I used the Speed and the Pro an awful lot last year, and I was really excited when Kieran got his hands on the new ones to see how he kind of came to them. So Kieran, yeah, what have you found with the kind of the Endorphin Pro and Speed 2 since you started running in them?
I mean, the one thing I've found is it's quite difficult to discern the difference between them. They are very, very close shoes. I've been out, as I like to do, and put one shoe on each foot and done, a few ups and downs in that. And actually, I think the difference is very, very faint difference. The first time we sort of spoke about them, I thought maybe that the Speed was actually a little firmer and a little bit more responsive. But actually, then having put them both on at the same time, now sort of see the difference. And actually, I think the Pro 2 comes up a little bit firmer, a little bit more responsive. There is a little bit more cushioning on the Speed. But I think it's really interesting that there's not that much of a gear shift for me personally. I don't know how you found it.
Yeah, I think they're incredibly close in terms of performance and feel. Like I think the lack of a carbon plate, the nylon one, just makes it a little bit less stiff, I guess, and firm. I do think there is a noticeable speed benefit of using the Pro. I've done kind of 5K race in this, 5K time trials in this, longer races, and that extra stiffness you're getting from the plate does make a big difference. I did a kind of 15 miler running at my target marathon pace, so kind of a 1:14.5 in this shoe, and it really felt good. I was worried it might start to feel too firm once you get above kind of 10-12 miles, but it's not the case at all. I think it is more of a bona fide racer than this, even though you can definitely race in this and you're really not going to be far off the performance of a carbon shoe. The Speed is slightly more geared to be a bit more of a do-it-all shoe, which is exactly how I used it. Some loads and loads of miles in it last year, just using it for everything. I think both are kind of really versatile, especially the Pro as what is a carbon super shoe. It doesn't come across like that. You could use this for pretty much all your training. Speed just is that bit softer, a bit more forgiving, while still being very nearly as fast. I've raced in the Speed 2, I've raced in the Pro 2. I've racing the Speed and the Pro, not necessarily the second versions. And the actual level of performance is very, very close. I think it's fair to say, I don't think have a huge squish and rebound like you're getting on other superfoams like New Balance's Fuel Cell or Nike Zoom X. I think the key feature is almost the speed roll technology. I think they're unbelievably smooth to run in, and as a result, it feels efficient, feels effortless. Like I heel strike, but and I heel strike, and I get a lot of benefits from all these carbon shoes, even the ones that are kind of spring in response. I feel, but it just feels so smooth running in the shoe.
Yeah, and I think that's one of the key things you sort of picked up on there is actually that I feel like it's quite a natural shoe in that sense. Again, going back to a sort of slightly more traditional shoe than when I put on something like the Vaporfly, I feel like I have to be racing almost, or I have to be going out and running at sort of top speeds. With both of these shoes, and actually really interestingly, I think the Pro 2, I felt like I can do a lot more sort of variation in my kind of paces, and it runs a little bit more natural. There's a little bit more stability, I think, for me as well. Yeah,
I do think they're quite stable shoes. I'd say also, there's not a lot of covering here, and I was really worried about the exposed foam, but I did put, like I say, 600k on the first speed, and I did that on light trails in summer. I didn't go on the trails in the winter or onto the kind of like deeper trails in my forest or canal tow bars, but it didn't really get ripped out. I actually was really impressed by how durable these outsoles are, even though the covering really is just on the kind of key impact zones. And again, I did a lot of wet weather training in these shoes, and the grip is really good again for what looks like a very small amount of grip. But I would say you couldn't go on really too much heavy trails on them. I would say would be unwise.
No, I mean I have done a bit, but I would say these are mainly for roads. The one thing I will say about both of these shoes, when I've hit forest trails where you're looking at kind of smaller stones, not kind of sort of little pebbles or whatever, they're a little bit less sort of stable, and I've noticed that, and they're not that comfortable to run when you go that little bit off track.
Which makes sense.
Which makes sense because that's not really what they're designed for. The other thing I think is really interesting, and this doesn't happen with all kind of super shoes, is when you sort of look at the padding that's provided in the Pro 2, and the speed is very similar. So, you're not going to, with something like a Nike, you're dealing with that kind of very pared back, and that, maybe isn't the most comfortable over long miles. Both of these have gone for sort of a similar thing, which makes, again, I think there's sort of a more democratic shoe. You could do more with this.
Definitely. I think it's actually a really wise shoe. I think way too many brands focus too much on like 1 gram here and how much of a difference that makes. If you're suddenly getting your heel ripped up by this bit, I'd rather have 2 grams of foam. But so fair to say, both very impressed with these shoes. I think the verdict's probably going to be key in which of these you should be looking at buying. I think it's fair to say. So these are both on sale now. It's a really hard decision, I think, to which one you'll be buying. But Kieran, let's say, what would you say is the better buy of these 2 shoes?
I think for pure versatility and for price, that value, I think I would go with the Speed 2. I don't think there's enough of a step up difference for me personally for the kind of runs that I'm going to do. If I'm going to, all those training runs and a little bit of racing, I'd probably go for this. The only caveat to that, I guess, is if you just want a pure buy one race shoe and you're really, really hell-bent on getting a little bit of extra, then I'd probably go Pro 2. But value for money, versatility, I'd go Speed.
Sounds like if you're buying one of these 2 shoes, it's definitely the Speed for me. I have raced in it, and it's just a slight level below a carbon racer. The other thing I'd say between these 2 shoes is, within their categories, I think the Speed is the best shoe of its type from any brand. I think it's the best do-it-all shoe, fast trainer, however you want to call it. I view it as a really versatile do-it-all trainer, but if you're just looking at fast shoes, I think it's better than things like the Brooke Hyperion Tempo, the Nike Tempo Next Percent, New Balance's Fuel Cell 2C. I think it's the clear pick. Whereas actually within carbon shoes, I don't think the Endorphin Pro is the best one out there. I still prefer using the Nikes, the Alphafly for me. And I actually pair this very nicely. You don't have to pair these. So if you are buying a carbon shoe as well, the Endorphin Pro is obviously the closest match to the Speed, but you really don't need to. I pair the Endorphin Speed with the Alphafly, or in new Asics Meta Speed Sky, which I think is a very good shoe as well. And that's fine. So that's probably more rotation I'd buy. As much as I like the Pro, it doesn't stand out in this category the way this one does within its own one.
The only other thing I'll say though is if you do pair them, there is something wonderful about pairing them because they basically have exactly the same step-in feel. Like there's real familiarity there. So if you like to do that, sort of going from a familiar training shoe up to a familiar racing shoe, if you get these 2 together, that is absolutely going to work for you.
Definitely, the Endorphin line is really well managed with the shift as well, which I think is not necessarily necessary. These 2 do cover all the bases for me, but I think something that Saucony has done probably better than any other brand is make a very, very nice built-in rotation. You're getting a little bit more stiffness and pop there in the Pro if you are looking for an all-out racer that does feel almost exactly the same, but if you're just getting one, you can race in this very successfully. That's it, guys. That's our comparison of the Endorphin Pro and Endorphin Pro 2 and the Endorphin Speed 2, and also it's a comparison of the Endorphin Pro and Endorphin Speed. Same shoes, buy the cheaper one. We hope you liked the video, and we hope you like and subscribe and write a comment. and ring the little bell, and all those things. And yeah, that's it. We'll see you next time. Time to say goodbye. Cheers.